So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary, as you know, Gary is an entrepreneur, wine enthusiast, businessman, and author of the book Thank You Economy. I'm going to turn it over to Gary. Take it away.
Can I use this? I know I'm mic'd, but can I use this? I'm in a little bit of a Richard Pryor mindset. I wrote a new book called The Thank You Economy, and I think it's pretty relevant. How many of you guys heard what's going on with me in the last week or so because I did a TechCrunch TV interview and I said 99% of social media experts are clowns? Raise your hand, just curious. So that's kind of an interesting thing maybe I'll start with, which is that please understand why I'm up here, what I'm about and what I care about. I really am interested in what's going on right now in general because I really haven't been a talking head or pundit or voice ever before, right? I mean, I think what I've always prided myself in being relevant in this space is that before I came and started talking about this stuff, I built a $60 million business, and that feels like, that makes sense, right? I mean, you build a business and that has validity. It's kind of why I don't really like reading Malcolm Gladwell because he's a journalist and I love psychology, I live on it, at some level. It's what I think is interesting. But it feels a lot better to read something from Tony Hsieh or Jason Fried because they've actually made lots of money on building a business. And so I'm here tonight to talk under the context of building a business, right? I mean, social media or Web 2.0 or the internet, whatever you want to call it, is doing a lot of things. It's overthrowing governments, it's changing the way we vote, it's changing everything. It's changing absolutely everything because we're talking about disruption in communication. And what are we really talking about? We're talking about disruption in communication. And let me promise you something right now. Every person in this room is in the eyeballs and ears business, period. No matter what you do, you are trying to grab the attention, tell your story, and convert for whatever the heck you're selling because you're selling something, okay? So why all this stuff means so much is the way every person in this room communicates has changed. Let me ask you guys a question. How many people in this room, raise your hand, are never in a 24-hour period, including when you sleep, an arm's way away from your telephone? At all times, every 24-hour period, your phone is within arm's reach. Raise your hand. I want everybody to look around. Keep them high. Go high. I see a lot of half-ass hands. Dear, you have a half-ass hand. Higher. Yeah, it's half-ass. Higher. We're talking about and I understand we're a little more tech savvy, this, that, and the other thing. That's insane. 75% of this crowd is within arm's reach of their phone at all times. You can put your hand down, dear. Thank you. It was amazing. She was on her phone, dedicated. I hear you. It's a big deal. The way we communicate as human beings has been disrupted in a way much more than what happened to the poor music guys, and much more than what's about to happen in the next 5 years to the television guys. And we'll all think it's a big deal because it's, TV's big. And so when it gets really disrupted in the next half decade, we're all gonna be like, holy crap. But I promise you, what's happened in communication is dramatically bigger. It's unbelievable that the actual phone call from a phone now is an anomaly. And that's what I get excited about. How does that impact business? I built Wine Library because my wine competitors were faxing their best customers offers, and in 1997, I got people's emails and started emailing them. That's why we won. Everything I talk about is gonna be the same old broken record. I promise you, for the next 90 years, hopefully, that you hear me yelling and screaming and ranting and raving, I promise you, it's all gonna sound the same. It's always the same game. Nothing changes. It's just that people get cozy. Or maybe they've won on a certain platform and they don't want the good times to change. Everything always changes. All I ever talk about is how innovation changes the game. Everything I talk about now is the same argument I had about e-commerce in 1997. We've all seen this before. This is the same thing. It's so fun for me to watch the mavericks of cable television of the early 80s cry their eyes out with what's going on right now when they were selling and yelling and preaching the same thing 3 decades earlier. It's always the same game. Here's the problem. Most people in this room and most people in the business world hedge. Most people are half pregnant. And being half pregnant is A, difficult, and 2, is why I think there's so much opportunity. See, Carol came up to me while we were, and so she said, you know what I love about you? You're so innovative, your mind's thinking so far ahead, and that was very flattering, Carol, but you know what's funny, Carol? I'm not so sold that that's true. Here's what I do. I am good at seeing what things are happening, and I can project at some level, but here's what I'm really good at, Carol. I'm really good at when I believe something is happening, I go all in. See, when I thought this was coming in 06, I went all in. I didn't need the ROI. I didn't need somebody to give me a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't need somebody in the wine space to do it so they could show me somebody who does it well. I don't give a shit about that stuff. I don't need it. When I recognize it, I execute. And so many people think I talk about the future. All I do is do things very quickly. I do them, sometimes wrong, sometimes right, but I do it so fast and so effectively and so all in that even though I'm talking about it for what's me a year or two later after doing it, it's still early enough. And that's the fascinating thing. That's why I'm completely convinced of what's happening. It's already showing itself. There are signs, but people aren't paying attention. For example, let me tell you a sign that really, really matters that did not get a lot of attention. General Foods did a Groupon offer. How many of you saw that? Raise your hand. Only a couple, and this is a savvy-ass crowd, okay? Let me tell you why it's so darn important. General Foods to do a Groupon offer means that they went over their distribution channels direct to consumer. Now, I don't know how many of you played in corporate America through the years or what have you. That is insanity. Billions in play with Walmart and Costco, and trust me, if you don't think the CEO of General Foods got a phone call from the CEO of Walmart and Costco and Target and Albertsons and Publix and on and on and on, Ralph's, whatever the hell you have here, on and on and on. If you don't think that they got those calls, those inquiries, what are you doing? They did. And the fact that they had the balls, or the fact that they did it, and they hit it, it was a coupon offer, this, that, and the other thing, but it's a sign. It's a sign that obsesses me, which is this. We all know the record labels got screwed, right? Parker and Fanning did that thing a while ago. What I think every single in this room, every person in this room, and I believe this firmly, does not recognize, and this is a smart crowd, everything in the middle is in trouble. It's just a matter of time. So when our refrigerators become Pandora and use RFID and UPC codes, and when you put 6 Pepsis in there and you take them out, and you put 6 Pepsis in there and take it out, and now the refrigerator is getting smarter and understands you're a Pepsi drinker, that when you get down to 1 Pepsi out of the 6 you just put in, and it reorders it for you, and it comes directly to your home, that's a problem. And that's a problem for a lot of people. Do you disagree? You're shaking your head, and I'm interested why. Oh, okay, cool. I was gonna give you an opportunity to talk about it, because no problem, apologize. I think that's a very fascinating thing. As a retailer, right? As a retailer, I think about that stuff. Who does that hurt? Walmart, Costco, because they're in the middle. They seem they're big now, but they're in the middle, my friends. They're in the middle. And so as our world changes, and let me promise you something, it's changing. And it's changing really fast. And we are all grossly underestimating the impact. The consumer web, I love to say this, is 17 years old. I know somebody's gonna raise their hand, probably Seth, he's super nerdy. He's gonna say, well, the internet's been around since, no, I know. I'm talking about since we all started really using it, when Windows 95 made us all use it. It hasn't been that long. And I think that is where the confusion is. I say in Thank You Economy and often that I hate the word social media. I do, because the word media screwed it up. Because media is push. And we've all heard the cliches. This is, again, a fun crowd to talk to because you've heard push, pull, engagement. I could sit here and throw out all the buzzwords all day long. What I can tell you from a guy who's answered tens of thousands of tweets, hundreds of thousands of emails, right, Alex? You know, from a guy who's done all that stuff, right? I know what the ROI is. I've lived it for the last 6 years. I know that we all know that content is king, and I know a lot of people here know what I've been talking about lately, and for the ones that don't, you know that context is the word that I care about. I think we're going through a battle of context. That context is the new frontier. That is the battleground. That when you can create some sort of emotion, that I know I leave here tonight and take a red eye, and I have a different relationship with every person in this room. I know that I could care less, sorry about this, Borders, that if anybody buys my book tonight, could care less, not interested, don't do it. You know why? I don't want to do business with you tonight. No interest. I want to do business with you for the rest of my life. And I'm not looking for a cheap $25 score tonight. And that I know 99.5% of the businesses in the world are. And that becomes interesting to me. That what happens when businesses start realizing that? What happens when everybody wakes up and understands what's really happening on the web? You know what's really happening on the web right now? Forget social media. You know what's really happening? We're living through an amazingly interesting time. That guys like me, who used to come up with good slogans and characters and ideas and was a marketing whiz, and I feel like a lot of you pride yourselves in your sales or creativity, we're about to become dinosaurs. Do you know why? Because as we live more digitally, there are nerds who are mapping customer acquisition. So I'm gonna stick on this for a while because I want you guys to understand what I'm about to talk about. Because I haven't gone too deep into this, and I'll do it tonight because I think this is the kind of crowd that can really get into this. This could be a fun talk. The reason Groupon and Gilt Group and Farmville are happening is because there is a science of acquisition. There's a science. I used to think that there was a really good, clever title I came up with for a wine, and it sold better. That the day I started Wine Library TV, we started feeling my absence in the store because I ran better titles. I'm a better sales guy. I had a better pulse of the consumer. That's what made me successful, and guys like me and gals like you, for the last 150 years, that intuition, that pulse for the consumer, that creativity, that's what won the war. But now, much to my dismay, there's a bunch of guys and gals who know that the buy button is blue, and when it's orange, it converts 17% better. And that pisses me off. But it's what's happening. And that the platforms to acquire customers are getting so sophisticated and the pricing is so affordable. You know, of course Facebook ads work. Of course you're not doing well with them because you don't know how to use it. You know what the ROI of a piano is for me? 0, because I don't know how to play. Do you know what the ROI of a piano is for Elton John? A shitload. And that is what I'm seeing with social media. What's the R of social media? The ROI of social media is the 19 people who've really tried really hard and really doing it. And if that's 19 or 19,000, I don't know the number, but I promise you it's small. It's not the people reading Chris Brogan and Mashable and TechCrunch every day. If you're reading, you're losing. And you know, you need to educate, and that's a big statement. I don't want to make a broad statement, but I promise you, there is, I live on broad statements. And it is how I feel. It is how I feel, because here's what I know. I know that the reason that VaynerMedia continues to grab corporate clients is we talk real business. I know when I walk into Pepperidge Farms, my first question is, where are our SKUs at Walmart and Target, right? Like we talk real stuff, like when are you on coupon, when are you off? It's real business talk. I don't start with, we need Facebook fan page. No shit, right? That's like saying you need a phone. It's a tool. It's a tool. And there's a lot of pundits and people walking around like, you need this, and you need to do this Twitter. We know you need to reply to people on Twitter. What's next? What do you got? What do you got after that? That's what matters.